Hi, I'm Jasmine, and welcome to Pushing Over the Box. I'm a 13-year-old ballerina who's curious about what it really takes to dance at the highest level. Here, I ask inspiring dancers about their routines, their mindsets, and how they break boundaries. Let's go! Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Over the Box. Today, I'm so excited to be talking to Ashley Hod, a soloist with the New York City Ballet. Ashley was also the recipient of the 2018 Lincoln Center Emerging Artist Award, recognizing emerging talent. Ashley is known for her strong technique, versatility, and artistry. I'm so excited to be talking to her, so let's get right into it. Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Jasmine. Thank you for having me on here. I'm so excited.
So when did you first start dancing, and did you fall in love immediately?
So I first started dancing when I was 4 years old. My mom signed me up for ballet lessons at my local ballet studio in Great Neck, and I definitely loved it right away. I didn't think much of it other than I was just having a good time. And it wasn't until a few years later that I realized I wanted to pursue it professionally. But ballet and gymnastics were kind of my two main hobbies growing up.
Yeah. And what did your training journey look like?
So it started at the Great Neck School of Dance. And then when I was 8 years old, my mom had me audition for the School of American Ballet. And I got in. So I started training at SAB then. And I trained at SAB my whole childhood and early teenage years, all the way up until I was 17 years old. And when I was 17, in November of 2012, they needed dancers for George Balanchine's The Nutcracker at New York City Ballet. That was when I got the phone call that I was asked to become an apprentice with the company.
Yeah. And did ballet originally feel easy for you as a kid?
I definitely think that it came more naturally to me because I have like a dancer's physique, I guess one would say, like long limbs and the ability to jump naturally. That always came easy to me. But there have always been things like with every dancer that, there are challenges. So like turning was never something I was super strong at. I've had to work a lot at that. And also similarly with like my feet, I've never had the archiest feet. So I've had to work a lot on them over the years. For the most part, I think between ballet and gymnastics, my mom knew that I was much more naturally gifted at ballet, which is why she kind of kept me going in that.
Yeah. And when did you realize that ballet could be more than just a hobby?
I think for me, I started training over the summers at Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, CPYB. When I was 11, that was the first time I went to that summer program. And I went there for the next 4 summers because I loved it so much. And they are so disciplined and there's so much training and technical focus. And I think that very first summer when I was 11, there was a huge shift in me where I realized it was more than just something that was fun. And it was something that I really thought I could do professionally. So I kind of feel like there was a big mental shift when I came back to SAB that following year. And all of my teachers could tell I was just hyper focused and like lasered in on the goal of being the best dancer I could be so that I could maybe become a professional one day.
Yeah. And did you stay in-person school throughout all of your training?
For the most part, yes. I was at a public school in Great Neck up until my freshman year of high school. So I did my freshman year of high school in Great Neck. Then at that time, I was taking the train back and forth to SAB. And then sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, I transferred to online schooling. So I did homeschooling. Whenever I came home from ballet class, I would finish and do all my studies.
Yeah. And what was it like getting your apprenticeship?
That was a very special moment. Like I said, it was kind of very unexpected. Typically, dancers will get their apprenticeship at the end of the school year in June. So that's kind of when it's to be expected. But it was during Hurricane Sandy in 2012 when everything kind of shut down. We had this huge storm. And I remember I was at my grandma's house because our house didn't have power. And I got a phone call from Kay Mazo, who's the director of the School of American Ballet, and she called me to tell me that I would be getting my apprenticeship at New York City Ballet, and they needed me to start right away the following Tuesday. So I went overnight from being a student at SAB to an apprentice with New York City Ballet, training and rehearsing for snow and hot chocolate, and just like in the blink of an eye, I became a professional, which was very crazy.
Yeah. And what was the transition like for you?
The transition was definitely hard. I think you're definitely told when you're a student that being a professional is very hard and that's long days and lots of rehearsals. But I don't think physically or even emotionally you'll ever be really prepared until you step into it. And so I just remember after my first day of rehearsals thinking like, am I cut out for this? Can I do this? Because like Waltz of the Snowflakes is very physically challenging. And I remember just like kind of huffing and puffing my way through, wondering, am I going to be able to do this full time? Am I good enough for this? But everyone was so welcoming and so kind, and I got the hang of it. And then before I knew it, New York City Ballet felt like my home and felt like my family. And now it's been 14 years, I think.
Yeah. And do you have any like tactics to pick up so much choreography so quickly?
I definitely think that picking up choreography comes naturally to me, which I'm really grateful for. Some ballets are easier to learn than others. We do a lot of counting at New York City Ballet, like counting out the music and counting out the repetition of the steps. But a lot of times I'll try and just like, I don't know, create a song in my head of the steps, and also just a lot of repetition. We have a lot of video footage that we're able to watch. I'll watch past videos and try to, similarly to school, like do my homework and study as much as I can before going into rehearsal. And I think just standing up and practicing the steps over and over until they sink in. I'm someone who kind of likes to like practice a chunk of choreography and then do it over and over until I have it set, and then add a little bit more and a little bit more until the whole thing is memorized.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you feel when you were promoted to soloist?
That was a very, very special day. I didn't really see it coming, to be honest. I'd been in the company for almost 10 years. I'd been doing a ton of soloist and principal roles for a long time, which I've always been so grateful for. But I didn't really think it was coming for me. And so when it did happen and I was in that big group of people, I was promoted alongside some of my closest friends and colleagues that I admire. I think there were 6 or 7 of us that got promoted to soloist at the same time. It was really so special and just nice to feel the recognition, and also kind of was like a little spark that was lit to kind of keep doing the work and to keep pushing and striving to become a better dancer and to not get complacent with where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. And do you have like a specific role or ballet that you think really challenged you or shaped you?
I think at New York City Ballet, we get to do so many different roles, which is, I think, part of what I love about this company so much, is that I feel like I'm constantly being challenged, having to perform so many different things. But with that said, I think every year we revisit the Nutcracker, and it's one of my absolute favorite ballets, probably my all-time favorite, because it's so nostalgic and every young dancer does it as a child growing up. I love revisiting, like particularly the Dewdrop and Sugar Plum Fairy every year. I think that they challenge me differently, artistically and physically. But another role that has really stood out for me that I feel like has kind of shaped who I am as an artist and as a dancer is the role of the Firebird in George Balanchine's Firebird. It's a role I never thought I would do. Like, everyone has dreams of growing up, and I always dreamed of being the Sugar Plum Fairy, but I never really thought about being the Firebird. I guess maybe I thought I never would get to that point in my career. So when I found out that I was going to do it, I was so excited and just ready to put the work in. And this year will be my 3rd season dancing it. So I feel like every time I do it, I get to show how much I've grown as an artist and incorporate new things into it. And I think the solos are just, both of the solos that I danced in are so different and so fulfilling in their own ways. And then, of course, the long pas de deux with Prince Ivan is just so magical and so much fun. So I'm excited for that one. I think it's definitely like my most maybe iconic or well-known role.
Yeah. And have you ever experienced or gone through a major injury, and how did you
I've
deal
had a
with
few,
that?
and they're so tough. Like definitely the hardest part of the job, I would say. Probably more so mentally and emotionally than physically even. In 2018, I had my first big ankle injury. I was doing a jump on stage in this ballet called Mozartiana, and I landed wrong from a jump and tore a bunch of ligaments in my ankle. I actually had to crawl off the stage in the middle of the show. It was like so painful. But I was pretty young at that point, and it took a while to recover from it. I had to do multiple injections and a lot of rest, but it definitely taught me when I came back from that it is possible to come back a stronger and even better dancer. So injuries don't have to define your career. They actually can push you to be a better version of yourself. And I think that first experience really, really helped prepare me for my later then ankle injuries, which happened in starting after the pandemic. I think in 2021 and 22, I developed ankle pain in my other ankle from overuse. And I think just from dancing, during COVID, everyone danced in their garage and on their kitchen floor and not in the best studios. And I think I was, stretching my feet too much. And so I developed an overuse injury in my ankle that needed surgery. So I had ankle surgery in my ankle in 2023. And that actually I healed much quicker from that than the other one. I was much more mentally prepared and experienced. And with an injury, and especially with a surgery, there's always setbacks. And so I think I came back from that surgery a little too soon. I had to take some more time away from the company about 6 months later. But I made sure to really let it heal that time. And my ankles have been doing really well since. But I think that like all of my injuries, have made me a better dancer in some way. Even if, I'm not as strong as I was at one point, it's kind of just like a lesson in patience. And eventually one day you will get over that hurdle and be a better and stronger dancer and also an artist too.
Yeah. And how was the pandemic for you?
Crazy. I mean, for everyone, I think it was just very uncertain and scary at times. But my husband, my now husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, Andrew, he was also a dancer with the company. We actually moved to Arizona to live with his mom. And we stayed the whole time that the world was kind of shut down. We lived in Arizona for a year and we actually had a wonderful, wonderful time there. I love the warm weather, like the pool, and just like, the life there was really great. And we got to teach at a local studio and take class all the time. So it was kind of a time for me where without all of the like outside noise of my job in New York City Ballet, I really got to focus on ballet. And I kind of fell in love with training again. I kind of felt like I was a student. I did a lot of private training over Zoom, a lot of just like open classes and practicing ballets on my own. And I actually think that despite getting an ankle injury as a result, like aside from that, I think I became a much better dancer. And I don't know, part of me thinks that maybe I wouldn't have gotten promoted to soloist after the pandemic had I not worked so hard and pushed so hard during that time. It was a time where I really tried to grow instead of just like sitting around. And for some people, it was a great break from dance. But for me, I had just come back from that other ankle injury and I was ready to dance. I was hungry for opportunities and then everything shut down. So it was actually a moment of determination and a lot of hard work and a lot of training. And I kind of fell in love with like rehearsing and all the behind the scenes in a way that I hadn't had before. I used to just love performing. And now post pandemic, I love class every day. I love my time in the studio rehearsing for things and collaborating with different dancers. And then the performance is kind of like the treat at the end.
Yeah. And how do you deal with self-doubt?
I feel like is inevitable for every dancer. I think even the greatest dancers in the world have moments of insecurity and moments of doubting themselves, and I'm no different. Something that I try to do is just stay like focused on myself and not comparing myself to others, looking around and saying, why does this person have this and I don't have that? That was something that I learned from former principal dancer Marie Krowski, who's a huge inspiration of mine. She always said to never compare yourself to others. And as soon as I stopped doing that, I felt like I could be proud of and admire my own strengths as a dancer. And now I feel like I've reached a point in my career where I can kind of look out at the other dancers in class and just be inspired by everyone and be like, oh, this like Tyler Peck's such an amazing turner. How can I turn like her? Instead of thinking like, why am I not a good turner? I watch her and I study her and I try to become better. So there's, I think, healthier ways of going about trying to grow as an artist without necessarily like making direct comparisons and, just like letting that self-doubt creep in. It probably will always want to, just because it's an art form and no one's perfect. But I think that just, celebrating everyone around you and being inspired by everyone has helped me a lot.
Yeah. And how do you deal with like hard days when you're feeling exhausted or not up to it?
Those days also are inevitable. We work so hard, especially as professionals and young dancers in training too. It's like you wake up and you do the same thing every single day. You go to the bar, you do your pliés, you do your tendus, and then you rehearse. So I think just trying to find ways to keep it interesting and finding ways to grow every day. And I think also just not letting yourself get so carried away with like the future or the long term and just celebrating like the small little wins. Like sometimes I'll be in the car driving home and I'll just be like, I had a really great rehearsal day. Like this ballet went so well and I had so much fun in the studio with my friends. And I think that looking forward to those little moments each day as opposed to like dreading the big show or being like, I have to be ready by this time. I only have 3 weeks to get my stamina up. It's like, I think if you let those anxieties creep in, the work can seem dreadful, but I think celebrating all the little moments really just make it so much more fun and more magical. And then you can kind of look back on them and be proud of how far you've come.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned the Nutcracker being your favorite ballet earlier, but do you have a favorite costume to wear?
I do love the Dewdrop costume, which is very like minimalist. It's very tiny, but there's so many dewdrop jewels on it. And the headpiece it's adorned with like so many crystals. So I absolutely love that one. But I also am I'm very minimalist. Like even my style day to day is very casual, very relaxed. So I think sometimes I really love just putting on like a Balanchine black and white leotard or a unitard. I do a lot of ballets where I wear just a plain unitard and I really love it. I think that the audience being able to see all the different shapes and our physicalities, because we work so hard, we're athletes in a sense. And I think being able to be proud of your body and what it's accomplished makes that for a fun costume for me. So I do love just like the simple Balanchine leotards or unitards that I get to wear. Ooh, that's a good one too.
And how do you deal with pre-show nerves?
I'm someone that does get nervous. I have a lot of energy. And like day to day, I'm a very energetic and outgoing person. And so I think that makes for a lot of nervous energy, especially when I have a big role coming up. And I've done a lot to manage my nerves over the years. I think I used to get like for some performances, especially right after being promoted to soloist, I put a lot of pressure on myself and I developed a lot of performance anxiety for the show to go perfect. And then I think that would creep in on stage and I wouldn't give my best performance. And so I've really worked hard over the last few years, especially to trust myself that I've put so much work in and the show is just to have fun. Like the audience is there to see you do well. They are there to have a good time. You're out there with your friends. I just remind myself that I'm living out my childhood dream. And I have a great like pre-show ritual in the dressing room with my friends, having a snack, just kind of like chit-chatting and keeping things very calm and very even-keeled. And then going backstage and giving myself a really good warm-up. And if I'm not first ballet, getting to watch the ballets beforehand always calms my nerves immediately because I just get so inspired by the dancers on stage that I'm like, okay, yay, now it's my turn. So that has really helped me a lot.
Yeah. And how do you find balance outside of the studio?
I think that's an amazing question and also kind of hard for dancers because ballet becomes your whole life. But it's so important to have a life outside of ballet because it does make you a more well-rounded and interesting dancer to have interests outside of the studio. So I like to spend a lot of time with my family. I'm the oldest of 6 kids and I'm very close with all my siblings. I'm very lucky that my family's in Long Island, very close to where I live. So I go out and see them all the time. I also have 3 dogs. So I love to just take them on walks and go to the park and just kind of like immerse myself in nature. And then also just have like a typical lazy day on the couch, watching TV, baking, just like keeping things really low key. And up until this year, I had been doing college part-time. So I was back in school. And I think that was a huge focus for me. It kind of took my energy outside of the stress of ballet and put my stress into something else, which I actually think really helped my dancing. It was nice to be like focused on different things.
And how would you define success?
I definitely think
and has that changed for you
that has
over
changed
the
for
years?
me over the years. I think when you're younger, success is joining a professional company. And then you get into a company and success is getting a lot of roles or getting a promotion. And those things do make for a very successful dancer, of course. But I think that those things are not as important to me as they once were, because sometimes even after attaining the rank or getting a ton of roles in a season, that may not necessarily make you the happiest or bring you the most joy. It has to come from within. So that has really changed a lot for me over the years. And I find to me now that success is feeling proud of myself after a performance, or feeling like I've put the work in and it really came across on stage and I touched an audience member or made an impression on a younger dancer and inspired someone and set a good example by being kind and supportive and respectful in the studio and on stage. So I think I'm really glad that my idea of success has changed. I think it's become a lot healthier as I've gotten older, and it has definitely made for a more rewarding career the last few years and seasons, especially. I think too, like I said earlier, going through injuries really helps put things into perspective. And like all of those times when I was sitting at home not able to dance, I couldn't wait to be back out there. And now that I'm able to dance and I'm feeling strong and healthy, I enjoy it so much more. And I think to me, just like finding the little joys, that is success.
Yeah. And how do you recover after a long day
I think
of
every day it's
rehearsals
kind of different.
for a
It depends
show?
on if we have like just a rehearsal day or if I have a long day and a performance. We have a cold plunge that was put into our theater recently, and that has been a huge lifesaver. I've used it frequently, a lot of times, like after most shows, I would say. I run up to the fifth floor and I dip in the cold plunge, like still in my hair and makeup. And all of my friends and the other dancers will all just like pop in there together, take turns and put music on. And that kind of really stimulates the recovery right away. And when I get home, I have the Normatec compression boots. So I got those for Christmas this past year. So I've been using those a lot and those help a lot. But before I had those, I would put my feet up on my bed frame before going to bed and just elevating my feet, having a really nice big meal when I get home, and trying to make sure I get as much sleep as possible because sleep is so important. So all of those things put together make for a very restful and helpful recovery to kind of gear up to do it all again the next day. I think
And
I
what
would tell my
advice would you
13-year-old
give your
self
13-year-old self?
exactly what I tell myself now whenever I'm having a down day or whenever I'm not feeling my best or not feeling motivated. I think I would remind myself that I'm doing it because I love it, and to continue putting the work in because the reward is so great, and to not get caught up on the little things, to not compare myself to others, and to be really proud of myself for how far I've come. And so long as you love it and you're having a good time and you're putting the work in, good things will come. That's a fun question.
And where do you see
In
yourself
10
in
years,
10 years?
I don't know if I will still be dancing. I'll probably will have just retired or will be at the very end of my career, something like that. Maybe a career in business. I'm getting my degree in economics and organizational leadership. So I have a lot of different potential routes that I could go. Excuse me. So I definitely see myself moving into a different field. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now. But I hope I have another 10 years left of dancing in me. So maybe we'll have just retired and hoping to have a few children. And yeah, just kind of living probably a very different life than I'm living right now, which is exciting. It's also really scary. But if I think about where I was 10 years ago versus where I am now, I've also done so many things that I probably wouldn't have imagined doing when I was 20 versus now when I'm 30. So it's exciting to kind of think about the future and where I'll be. But yeah, I think motherhood and maybe a different career path will be in my future in 10 years.
And my last question is,
Yes,
have you ever
not so much
explored like
choreographing.
the
I only
teaching or
choreographed once when I was a
choreographing side
student
of
at
ballet?
SAB, but I've done a lot of teaching and it's really fun. It's something that I feel like I've grown to love. And I don't want to say, oh, I'm so good at this, but I think I've really like developed a passion for pushing students to become better. Like I wouldn't say I'm the most easygoing teacher. I push my students to be hard workers and to reach their full potential and be the best of their abilities. But I started teaching a lot over the pandemic when I was in Arizona, virtually, privately, and also in person. I taught young kids, teenagers. I taught adult classes. And so now I've kind of have a really broad range of skills in terms of the types of students that I have and that I teach. I still try to teach as much as I can. I have a couple of students that I work with privately. and I'm going to be teaching at a few summer programs this summer out in Arizona. So I definitely think that teaching has helped me as a dancer. It helps me recognize, like, when I'm giving a correction, I'll be like, oh, I should apply that to my own dancing, or, it's something that I feel like I could take within. So yeah, it's something I really love. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to
Well, thank
see
you
the
so
final
much for
result,
coming
and
on
I'm
today.
happy
It was
that
so
you
great to
chose
talk
me
to
to
you.
do this recording.